Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel, J. Marie Paint with Me. This afternoon we're going to do a part 2 of a drawing that I was doing for a painting the other day that I did a little tutorial on for part 1, and talking a little bit about washes and then how you apply paints and things like that. But you can check out part 1. This is part 2, and this is going to be on layering within the same painting. So the title will have the same name within it for part 1, so you know that you're looking at the right painting, the right tutorial. So let's get right to it. Okay, so here we are down back at the table here. As I said, we're going to continue on from, this was part 1 that I did, and it will have the same name in the title for part 1. This one, in part 1, I just did washes and things to show, and how water works, with the paint, and doing these different things that I did. I painted these and we explained it, painted the bowl and the apples and this vase, the table it was sitting on. Now we're going to come and we're going to get into something called layering, which I have one layer on because it's a very light layer for a wash in the background. We're mostly going to stick with the background on this particular one. So I can use, pretty much whatever brush I want, but I think what I'm going to grab here, I think what we're going to use is the flat one. This is a flat number 1. I'm going to wet my brush. And we have, for the first layer of these trees that are, you can't make out anything about them. They're the first layer. It's a wash. It's a very faint wash, light wash, just to indicate that there are trees as we look through this window in the background. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to make this a little more vivid. So we're going to get some green and a light green and some yellow. And this is all dry. This was overnight, so this is now dry, because before I would head to another layer, I would need to dry the first layer. And I did that. So this is completely dry now. So I'm going to just come in here onto this left side. This left side is the darker side. Right over what I've got going on, we're going to dab in. I'm just sort of doing this, kind of like scriggling. And over that first layer, which I don't want to cover up because that's my first layer, and it indicates trees. Now you see can you see the effect there? You can see the effect that I'm putting a darker layer over a lighter layer, because now we're going to start bringing our layers forward more. All right, so dab my brush off. I just changed my palette to something a bit, wasn't big enough. The other one wasn't big enough, and I'm always on the search for a palette that works for me. So we're going to dab into these colors here. That's a little too dark, so I don't want it that dark yet. All right, so we're going to come over here. Actually, I'm going to add a little more because this is more to the color that I kind of wanted here. And squiggle it around. Now we have that layer, and with this layer that I started to put in here, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to put water on my brush, and I'm going to add in some more darker layers. Add some lighter, really lighter parts here for that background. I wanted to get by this that area there. Okay, so we got, got some more darker looking, what is looking like still, kind of far off trees that are just sort of all in the background there, right? So they're just sort of all, they kind of just look all, every which way, because they're just way in the background still. Now, this isn't going to take long to dry, so, and I don't need it to be completely dry, but I do need it to be mostly dry. But where it's a very light wash, thin wash, it's not going to take very much time. So that's the second layer that I've put on. Okay, now we want to bring the trees even more forward, right? We want to get them even forward even more. So I wet my brush a little, dabbed some of that off, went into my color on the palette, which isn't sopping wet, it's sort of medium wet. And I'm going to come here on top of what I just did, and with this darker pigment, it's called, I'm going to add that in right over without, we don't want to cover it all up because we want to see all the layers happening. Another way to do this is just dabbing. I like to squiggle it around. It seems to do better for trees. For this depiction of trees, I should say. The more I come over to the right-hand side here, this is where my light source is. I established that my light source was coming onto the right side of my picture. And that is also indicated in the vase, where the highlights, you can see the, let's get that green out of it. I want to get that. Where I did the vase and I left white spaces, mostly all on the right side. The apples all have mostly onto the right side. The vase has the highlights mostly on the right side. So that, as just looking at it, kind of establishes for you that that's what I'm doing. So that's a good way to understand that. The table as well. It is mostly all, get some of that hard, it's hard. It's mostly all light on this side. And I have also established some lighter areas in the what is supposed to be the wood grain of the window, even down here, because the sun would be shining down, right? Now, I'm really not, I don't want these trees to be defined. The point of this was looking through a window out, a ways, and there were some trees and bushes out there that you can't make a whole lot of. So all I'm going to do, whoops, too much there. I'm going to get some sepia, mix it in with some green, a little bit of purple, and wiping a lot of it off and hardly anything on my brush. Oops, we need a little more than that. Okay, I'm going to just do a few with this chisel side of my brush. I'm going to make some what looks like, that's all we're doing here, is doing what looks like nothing, hardly anything defined. My paper is still wet, so it's going to spread a little tiny bit into the green, but I'm just making the indications of, you guessed it, branches, because this is all supposed to be far off in the distance as they look out the window. All right. So, another thing I'm going to do while that's kind of drying, because there's not much more I want to do that. The only other thing I do want to do with it is I want to dab in some yellow on top of what I've got going on, which is another layer, because this is the highlight side. So we want everything going to the right hand side to be light. So that'll kind of indicate that on this side over here, it's the light is coming through. Now, on this wood, I'm taking some burnt sienna. Whoops. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to spray my paints one more time. Apparently I didn't spray them enough. I didn't want to get them too watery, but I do want them to be able to, I don't have them in these little tiny containers to try out this palette. So I had some of that. I had some Payne's Gray, and I had some, I can't tell whether that's the metallic gold or the yellow or the yellow ochre. That's okay. We're just gonna. Okay, so I've got this on my palette, and because my shadow side is over here on the left, I'm going to use my finger to kind of balance my hand here. See? Because I'm trying to not rest my hand into the paint. I don't want to do that because I've established that it's darker paint to go on the, oops, we went out of the lines a little. That's all right. I'm having one of those days, folks, so there might be a lot of happy accidents in this particular one today. I'm just trying to keep pushing through, but my morning was like that, so it's possible that my afternoon will be like that, but we're not going to let that stop us. Absolutely not. Okay, so you see what I did? I layered on top of what was already dry of what I did yesterday on my window panes. So you see it's starting to look more and more like an actual painting where we're looking through the windows. Another thing I'm going to do here is take my brush with nothing on it, no paint, and just this pulls out paint, and it will establish highlight areas. It's one way to do it. You can use paper towels, so forth and so on. But while it's still pretty wet, see, I can establish some areas of light where the light would be hitting it. All right, now I have already done the vase and this bowl, but I wanted to go back in, and with that I need a smaller brush, something smaller and preferably round. So I'm going to go into the blue again, this pretty metallic blue that I was using yesterday on this, and right over the layer that's already dried, very important, it's got to be dry, I am going to add on some of that color again, just to make it a bit more pronounced, more, and it sparkles. It's one that sparkles. I'm keeping my white highlighted areas. I don't want to lose those. And what I did is I actually grabbed some mauve, and I went in with some mauve, hold on, and added that into the blue, into areas as well, which that went a little too much. So we're going to come and take some out, which I, explain in other videos how to do that. But you see that kind of made a nice color combination there. And then this one here, I don't have the, oh yes I do, okay. I'm going to take that color with a little bit of the purple. That's what I used when I did this one. And just on this side, this left side, I am going to add some, a little too strong. I want to add some to this side only to make it a little bit, outline that a little, just to bring a bit more vivid color on the left side that we are saying is the shadow side. I'm going to put a little bit over here. I forgot to shut the TV off. I hope it's not too much of a nuisance. And it already looks better. I'm going to take some of that. I took some purple yesterday very faint. I don't want a lot of it. And too much water. There was a good example of a happy accident. A little too much water on the brush, because what happens is when I put a lot of water and I don't get it off, or I put water and I don't get it all off, it's going to fall down my brush, and when I'm right in the middle of something when I don't want it to, for sure, inevitably, it's going to right into my painting that I'm painting, and we don't want that to happen because we're trying to do something rather specific here. So I like that better already. Isn't that nice? Come in on this one and sort of soften it a little bit in areas. Get some of that, the shadow going on here off to the side, because it's the shadow side. Okay, I don't want this to be too long, and there isn't too many areas in this painting I wanted to do that because it's on layering. So the only thing left I really have to do here, because the trees are indicated that they're in the distance. We're looking out the window and the trees are way off in the distance, but they are there. So this bowl here, I think I'm going to make it, I think I'm going to go into the gold color. And I've got paint on my brush. I do not have paint on I do not have water on my palette. Oh, for heaven's sakes, I can't talk today. I hope you're laughing with me, folks, and not at me. On my painting here and on my brush, I just want to light wash first to get on here. I'm going to grab a little yellow ochre, I think. Oh, that turned out to be something else. Oh, my God. Okay. So, again, I hope you're laughing with me and not at me, as we all have these lovely days that no matter what you do, they just follow you all day long. Sometimes. This is one of them. Okay, I got some more paint on my brush, less water. I guess it's going to be like a yellowish, goldish bowl. And again, we're putting the what do you call it? Darker part on the left side and leaving the highlight to the right side. If this paint would only work with me. I get a little too much water in that spot, that's why. So we're going to soak it up and start again with it. I put that paint in there. This is, I think, some yellow ochre. And then I'll come up here and I'll add it to this one side. Go into a little of this sepia color that I kind of have, just to outline the bowl a bit, differentiate between the top and the bottom. And the rim. And my mouth is so dry today. I don't know what in the world is going on today. But anyway, just one of those days. Okay, so we just have some colors from my palette that I'm distributing around towards the right-hand side. Now I'm going to add some blues. I like those kind of bowls that have all these colors in them. And I don't want to mess with it too much at all, but I left the right-hand side with the white of the paper for the highlights, just like everything else has. So, besides the fact that I did the layer part. This is, the part that I wanted to show you of layering on this and what it was to layer on is done. Right now, what I'm going to do, well, first I'm going to come over here and soften some of these lines a little bit more. And here. Yeah. I'm going to just indicate a flower. You'll see in a minute what I'm going to do. Let me get a little bit of a brownish color going on. That's my sepia and a little bit of that in there. Because right now I've got like quite a few different colors blended all on my palette. I'm going to do like a line there and make some stem-like things coming off like this. Not completely, I don't want it completely straight, just, you know, kind of like this, kind of a branch. And then I'm going to take some of my acrylic white. Yes, using my same, if it's going to show up, we got to see how it's going to work here. It's not going to show up very much, is it? So we're going to turn that into, I'm going to get some red along with the white and make it a sort of a pinkish kind of, dab that off again. And one of those cute little flowers. I'm dabbing the tip and then press down, tip, press down, tip, press down. And just kind of doing this sort of thing to indicate that there's a flower here that is just laying on the table. And I'm going to dab just a few places like this for indications of leaves, petals that fell off this little flower, whatever it is. It can be whatever you want. This is a last minute toss it in there, so I really don't know what it is. And you can make it be whatever you want it to be. I'm going to add a little bit of white onto this side of that because it's the light side. So we know that there's light going on there, diluting the color, so to speak. And that's really all I want to do with this. So catch the first part where I did more of the painting on of things. I drew it on and then I explained what I was doing with the first part. And the second part was mostly on layering and how you layer layer onto layer like we just did. And then I came in and I added on some sides, the shadow side, some darker color also is layering because the layers underneath are dry. Once they're dry, you can put another layer. Then it's dry, you dry it, put another layer. So we did that with all of these objects. So I hope that kind of helps with explaining some layering. I mean, I'm sure I'll do it again in some other videos in a different way. I just happened to be drawing this out the other day and happened to think, well, wait a minute, I can use this as little segments of teaching. So that's why I did it this way. This is not a painting, it's just a teaching. So that's how I did that. So I hope that helped you folks. Check out my other tutorials as well. There's some other things all there that'll help you out, encourage you, show you some different ways to do the painting, the way I do painting especially, because each one of us has our own particular way of painting. And this is mine, using these different techniques. So have a great rest of your day, folks, and bye for now.